Hello, guess who's back? Ray's back. Hello. Hiya. We're back again, of course. Star Trek
Of course.
Picard, season 3, episode 7, closing in the end. Shame, but
No, it can't be.
we're getting there. All good things have to come to an end. This episode's called Dominion, and you'll find out why. And it's a weekly review of it. Brief, general, non-spoilerly thoughts. Great. A nice continuation. Still a good episode, etc., etc.
I think what's interesting is every title to episode has all been
It's important,
more or less more or less a throwback kind
relevant.
of title, and relevant to the story as well. So all good. Before we start, the only not bummer about the series, we still got three more episodes, right? Once that's over, though, we just got news about Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. It's going to premiere in June, I think June 15th. But once Picard ends, we have to wait almost 2 months before there's any new Trek. That's a long time, man.
That's the norm, though. They were. As much as I hate to say it, there was a lot of Star Trek at once, which I think I made a passing comment to you, Gray, that it was almost too much. Not in a bad sense.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it's not smart as a company releasing so much Trek at the same time. There should be these kind of gaps in between seasons, really, ideally.
Yeah, but I was thinking like a month would be enough. 2 months is like,
So-
I can't stand it. I need my Star Trek.
That'll be Strange New World season 2, but season 3 has been greenlit. And then also season 5 of Lower Decks, which seems to be really popular with viewers. Like, it's one of our least favourite ones, but it's funny, it's a different take on it, it's getting the numbers. It may be Prodigy that it's off. They like it from what we're hearing, but they're just too many shows and they have to pick one to cancel, and it might be Prodigy after season 2.
I think the plus the production time you need for something like Prodigy takes quite a while. That's not cheap animation.
No,
They do
good quality
some
animation.
work on it. Yeah. So I wonder though if they're gonna go Prodigy season 2, whether they're gonna go as many episodes as they did last time.
They order them in blocks of 20. That's why we got part of the reason we got a delay in Prodigy the whole season between parts 1 and 2. They got to order them in blocks in 20 from what I'm hearing, but they just decided to split that one up. So they may do the same with Lower Decks as well. So we may very well get. Oh no, there'll be season 5. What are we up to? Lower Decks.
4 is coming up.
4's coming up, so it might be a 5 and a 6 then for Lower Decks, and it could be 2 and 3 of Prodigy. We don't know. It's just hearsay, but yeah. Anyway, just a little.
And then Kirk might still be alive, so we'll get another series with him, and then we'll get into that.
There was spoiler in the last episode. It's not a secret anymore.
Yeah, no secret. It's all over the freaking internet. As soon as that came up, did you notice? As soon as that came up, you just sit there and put the word Kirk in YouTube, and all this stuff comes up from people
on Twitter as well. Yeah.
Talking all about it. James T. Kirk.
Kirk's remains are there. Picard's remains are there. Could be a hybrid, who knows? Anyway, right, we'll kick
right into it.
We'll kick on to the review. I don't have as many notes as I usually do, which is good because I don't like loads of notes. I like to have main points and then talk about them. It should really be. At the start, it does open a little bit, and I'm fearing for the worst because it opens with a Titan. But I don't know this immediately. It took me a few seconds to click on that they were actually in a scrapyard, hiding out on really low power settings, and they can't really hide in any one place for too long, Gray. So they're like basic minimum power settings, just chilling out. And I'm thinking to myself this whole time, why did not one piece of shrapnel or space debris not hit the Titan? The amount of things kicking about and almost hitting it and conveniently missing. You don't think that? There's stuff everywhere, man.
I do, but then again, if you keep it in the proper orbit, I guess maybe is the word. And we don't know that things haven't been hitting the shield and they may be bouncing off or something like that. But they were kind of positioned properly.
True. It was
although they don't look like junk when you see all the other stuff, though. That's the only thing I was thinking. I was going like, well, all these things are pieces of junk, all ripped up to shreds and giant pieces of hull.
And
and here's a ship that's totally It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think it's more of a scanning thing. You'd have to get up pretty
Yeah.
close to see that, and space is big. So yeah, no, you got a point, no great. We have at this stage 7 asking about the whereabouts of Riker, and she's speaking to who's she speaking to on the big screen, Gray, that we're really excited to
Oh, Tim Russ, back again.
us Tuvok.
This keeps on surprising us. I love this because every week it's like, oh, Ro comes back. Oh, now
The
it's
surprise of the
Tuvok
week.
is back. Yeah, really. And like, what else is coming?
And keep that stuff. Keep the surprises.
Yeah.
Don't give us everything.
Exactly. I'm very surprised. I was just like, okay, wasn't expecting him. I thought we were done with the surprises, with the possible exception of Kirk, if it even happens, and we don't know if it will. So I kind of thought that was relatively the end of the surprises, but then all of a sudden Tuvok's there. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was nice. He's got on a bit, Tim, but it's great to see him back on Star Trek.
I do think though the Vulcaneers are a little bigger.
They are like. Is
mean,
that an age thing? If you're a Vulcan, they get bigger when you get older. No, human ears get bigger when you get older, Gray. So
yeah. Well, these things were like kind of sticking out like more too, and I was like,
his ears were that big. You're picking up all the satellite channels with them bad boys. That's all I'll say.
Just a minute while I change channels.
So it was great seeing Tim back. It was absolutely magic to see Tim Russ back in the fold, because this has all happened at the same time. DS9, Voyager, not so much Next Gen, that was just before, but it's still that bubble of time. Sure. So good to see another one back in. 7 at this stage is not sure if Tuvok is a changeling or not. Understandably, you've got to test everyone. She tries to test him, and she's asking him, well, they're talking about the game Calto, the Vulcan game of logic that they're playing, and she mentions this to him, and then there's a kind of little pause for a minute from Tuvok, and he goes, yes, as you know, the many times I beat you. And then she smiles, and then the Voyager theme plays in the background.
The Voyager theme comes up. Yeah, it was great. I was going like, yeah,
the proper bloody thing. A whole good 10 seconds or 8 seconds of it, Gray. But we're spoiled, man.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
And I note down here, fascinating. Very Vulcan. I was like, this is brilliant. I love this. And you thinking, great, he's not a changeling. But wait for it.
Yeah, here it comes.
He is eager to please. This is the thing, they're trying to meet up, and they're trying to get some dialogue going, and he's like, listen, we can meet up, just you let me know what's good for you, kind of thing. Like, it's just too eager, and I'm thinking something not quite right there. And then the camera, this is a great bit of filming, I thought, Gray. Literally, 7 then starts asking him some questions about a location where they're going to meet. And the fact that, at one time she got some work done on her Borg implants and stuff. And he's like, yeah, sure. And then the camera like almost zooms in as if it's going to hit Jerry Ryan in the face. And she goes, wrong. You would know that Vulcans, there was an issue. Vulcans don't like that place. And I got my work done on my face on Voyager. And, we know what you're up to. And then it goes back to Tim Russ. And he doesn't get to do this often as a Vulcan in a series. Big smile. And he's like, oh, well, I may as well tell you my plans and what's on my mind while I'm here, because it's the bad guy thing to do. And he's starting to trace them, like the back channels and all that, trying to find out what's going on. And they're all shitting themselves on the bridge because he's getting closer with the trace on them. But they managed to cut the signal. But there's one thing to mention that's kind of important, and that's that Tuvok actually may be in danger himself. Was it to do with the comment, Gray, of was it the Calto comment?
What she was saying, or what 7 was saying, and what they all know, is that if a changeling has taken your position or your likeness, that means you have to either get rid of the original that you took the likeness of, either by killing them or something. So obviously she fears for the real Tuvok's life, because if this guy's already taken his place, then either Tuvok is dead or Tuvok is in a cell somewhere, or Tuvok got away and he's God knows where. So obviously that would be one of the first things I would think of too. Like, where's Tuvok?
There's a comment that he makes that only the real Tuvok would know, and I can't remember which one it is. It may very well be the Calto one or something very private that only those two have discussed, and that's why she's then concerned for her friend's well-being. And she calls him Tuvok. How did he have 4 pips?
Yes, he did.
You don't.
I was trying to see whether it was 3 filled in pips and an empty one, or there was 4 filled.
So that's
I
Commander,
think it was all
isn't
4.
it?
All 4 filled, I believe, is at
Captain.
least captain.
Yeah, so like she's a commander. She's a number 1. They must be really good friends to like just use first name basis for someone that's of a higher rank,
I mean, you can look it up, but they do either pips full or pips half full, or not full. So in other words, it could be a full pip, or it could be a pip that doesn't have any filling inside, but it has the ring around it.
Yeah, but that means something different. So if you've got 3 solid pips and a 4th that's empty, that's lieutenant commander or commander.
Yeah, whatever the step is above commander before you get to captain, I think is 3 pips and 1 not filled.
That doesn't
pip.
exist. You're commander, then you're the captain.
No, there again. I don't know the exact
lieutenant
reason,
commander.
but I have seen characters actually wear 2 pips and a third one not filled.
Yeah.
I've seen 3 filled and the 4th one not filled. And then they fill it when you get to the next rank.
Okay. Listen, but we did notice.
I mean, Admiral. I think Admiral. I think you stop somewhere at 4, because when you're an Admiral, I didn't see any more than 4, unless the color changed. That could be. These are little things that they do pay very close attention to detail, but sometimes we don't always dive into as much detail.
Explain it sometimes maybe in a one-liner that you're good at, Terry, because that would help us out if things have changed. We do hear Jamie's name mentioned more than once. They're trying to get through to her again, but she's busy for Frontier Day. And at this stage, Gray, you're noting here that we're getting a bit sick of her name getting mentioned and not seeing the legend, the great woman herself.
You do know there's no way they can't show her now.
I'll go nuts if they don't.
That's 3 or 4 times now they mentioned her since the beginning of the season, and yet you still haven't seen her. So there's no way in hell they can't show her. If they don't show her, that'll be a big mistake. It's impossible. Why would you go around mentioning her so many times? I mean, come on. Your name dropping way too much, so you gotta have her.
I want to see all these old people come back, right? These older people, right? The lot of them, including Kirk, keeping Picard around, right? And just call it like Star Trek Coffin Dodgers in Space or something. Like I don't know, like just have all these old folks in there and just be like
Star Trek Aldercockers.
That's a great name, man. No one better trademark that. That's ours, right?
You see it now. They're all in their 70s and 80s for fire phasers.
And they'll be like, hey, it's your turn to take him out. My back's gone, man. It's your
I can't do it, man. Yes. Don't they have any better chairs than these to sit in?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, so that's a great idea. It'll never happen. But anyway, right. So,
yes, but see now, if Janeway comes back, then you can have Janeway on the Voyager, Kirk on the Enterprise F. You can bring out the D and the E, and then they all fight Vadik. See?
What's Picard on then? The Titan? No, he could be the Stargazer.
No, we'll throw Picard on the E. And then just for the heck, no, we'll throw him on the D because that's his oldest ship, one of the oldest.
The E wasn't there.
I know, but
the E was there, and it's the Stargazer was there.
But the E's out there somewhere. Just bring it in.
No, it's not.
I don't know. Just bring it in.
I think it's been decommissioned.
I don't care. Write it in.
Anyway, we're sidetracking too much.
At this stage, but it's fun.
Say now. You're trolling me. You're trolling me. Something bad. Right.
I want all the Enterprises there. Go all the way back. Bring them all back.
Enterprise whore. Yeah, Enterprise whore that you are. Right. Yeah. So now moving on. Yes, they try to. They're trying to figure out the theft of Picard's remains. Surprise, surprise. And the only expert they have on board that we could help them in regards to genetics, because they know there's something up, they just can't quite piece all the puzzles, pieces of the puzzles together at this stage. The only person on board that could do this is Data, and he's powered down at the time because of the conflict between him and Lauren and the system. little Trekway plug there on the mug. I like it, Gray. Well done. Yes, that's for free. I don't pay him. Like he advertises for free, man. What a guy. Right, yeah. So, like I say, there is a battle going on between Data and Lore and the one body, so they have to bear this in mind when they boot them back up again. And you're not sure what you're going to get when you fire him up because he's conflict before. And do we boot him up? Do we not? But they don't really have an option but do that, so they decide that they're going to go ahead with that. I've read Gray's comment before and I've just reread it again. Floaty McFloatface or Float Head. Floaty McFloatface sounds better.
Floaty McFloathead.
Floaty McFloatface has got lots of F's in it, you see. So he's put Floaty McFloathead because I mentioned here Floaty Head is back because we don't. That's the big bad. The thing that comes out of Vadik's arm. It's funny. And we saw this in the teaser trailer last week, and it was the scene where Floaty McFloatyface or Floaty Head is talking to her and giving her a telling off, and you have to get Jack Crusher now and get shit done yesterday.
Yep.
And then he controls her somehow, controls her changeling makeup, because we don't think he is a changeling. We don't think.
Yeah.
Do you know?
We don't know.
I've got theories, Gray. People have said that he could be either some big chief changeling, but then probably not because he goes your people. So I don't think he is a changeling. He could be one of the Bajoran gods from the wormhole. People are saying that. Bit far-fetched. Or he could be something that's just kind of genetic. He could be Borg as well. Because the Borg have been rumored to come into this at some point from other people. So,
yeah, but
what's your thoughts?
I don't think the Floaty McFloathead talks like a Borg enough. If it was a Borg, he wouldn't be talking.
The Queen does. Queen does, mate.
Well, yeah, but the Queen was the only one. Really, I mean, she was the only one that talked like that. So that means the Queen
more
should
than
be
one
there.
Queen.
Oh, don't even start me on that one.
It's theories. I'm not saying they're right or wrong or what I believe and what I don't believe. It's what people have said. And who do you think Floaty McFloatface is?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm
not changeling.
It's not to say. I'm not going to say that. I think it could be a changeling too.
He said your people. Our people,
well,
you would say if you're the
but remember, there's your people meaning her. She's the captain. Your people meaning her crew.
Yeah, true.
Easily say that.
Yeah.
So he could be a chief.
One of the ancient first ones, one of the originals, even if you like, or the High Hegians.
I mean, we don't know whether Floaty Head has been changed to look like them. Maybe he's just a regular changeling that's the head of this whole conspiracy.
That would be so
thing,
disappointing if that was the case. After all the theatrics and the floatingness, that would be disappointing.
Remember, that could just the Floaty Head could be just an avatar.
Yes,
he may not look
true.
He may not look anything like that, for all we know.
I
think that's the cool part. I mean, just the fact that we're talking so much about him shows that the writing is so much better because they've got us spinning around now, and we don't know what it is, and we keep on coming up with different ideas. We don't know whether Kirk's going to come back, even though I don't think he will. But they did throw the berry out there for us and everything, or as they call the rotten berry. I didn't make that up.
I'm going to lose subs after that. I'm going to lose subs for that one.
They used to call it member berries. You remember?
Yeah. Do you not remember South Park episode? You don't watch South Park? The member berries.
I haven't in a long time.
Oh yeah, people that watch South Park will know what I'm talking about. The member berries. Anyway, right, yeah, that makes so much sense now. At this stage here, Floaty McFloatface is messing her up. Literally, he is the chief daddy and he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
He does sit down back on the on her captain's chair and she seems rattled. And I'm thinking at this stage here, is she crying a little bit, Gray? It looks a little bit like it.
Every time she talks to Floaty, she's very subservient, like she's a little baby.
Well, she literally is, yeah.
And even in the way she talks, she just goes, well, I really didn't think that was, And then as soon as she's not talking to Floaty, she's like, kill the ball,
That's true. Yeah. I think that's called really good acting. Anyway, I want to pick with you slightly here, Gray. I mentioned here, moving on, that Jack in the turbo lift is chatting up Sydney LaForge, right? Because he can hear her thoughts. His skills are moving on, man. He can hear people's thoughts now. He's a telepath. And Gray thinks it's the other way around. Now, I'm saying it's him chatting her up because he can hear her thoughts. We can only hear her thoughts for the purpose of it. So why is it the other way around?
Okay, so because the way you have it written is Jack is chatting up Sydney, but she can hear his thoughts.
Yeah. Of course.
She doesn't hear his exactly. She doesn't hear his thoughts.
Of course,
the other way around.
I was wondering what you meant by that. That does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he can 100% hear her thoughts, which is creepy as hell, and his skills are moving up to the next level now, which is a bit concerning. There's the whole thing of he's trying to get some kind of date or something arranged with her, and she thinks this is a bit too much, and he starts listening to her thoughts. It's a bit forward, and has it even, he could touch my hand or something first, and he hears that, and like every guy that wants to hear a woman's thoughts so that he knows the perfect time when to make a move, and he goes and touches her hand. She's like, walks away, and she's like, why did you do that? And then instead of answering, he goes all red eye, and the vines start appearing again. I'm like, Jesus Christ, with these vines, man, come on. That's a bit.
And the red eyes, yeah.
Tedious. We'll get to the whole thing. Who he's going to become.
And that whole scene was kind of cringy though too, because she's looking at him like, you're a creep kind of look.
Yes.
And why would you be doing this in the middle of whatever's going on? And I mean, I thought the scene was you probably didn't need that scene. I think it was a little much. I mean,
cutting her up's fine, but the way you do it.
Yeah, it's the way you do it. And I don't think the way that it came off was a little weird.
Yeah,
and a little uneasy. And if I were her, I would have like punched him in the head or something. But she didn't.
Wow.
So it just seemed kind of odd, and it could have been probably handled a little better. But it might be a wee bit of nitpicking, but it just seemed it kind of threw it off. Until it got back on track again. Yeah,
it did a little bit. One thing before I do forget really quickly, Gray, that I mentioned before and I didn't actually add, when we first see the Titan Bridge in this episode, not all of them, but several of the crew members are wearing black Starfleet outfits, like jackets. Very Section 31, I thought. And you probably noticed that as well, but it wasn't all of them. It was like Shaw and maybe one or two others. Like, did you notice that? What's that all about?
I don't know. I was thinking that what they gave Jack to wear was just because it has no pips or anything, so it's just general Starfleet ensign wear, I guess.
Shaw's wearing all black.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they handle that. Maybe because Shaw's gotten beaten up a couple times. That's all he had left to wear.
Too much blood on it, and he'll get beaten up again as well. That's the best of it. He's always getting beaten up.
Hey, in this episode, he's got the blood going on and getting hit in the head again. Like, poor guy.
Yeah, just before I forgot about that point, because it was something I noticed before. Vadik, we don't see Riker in this episode. Well, we do briefly, but it's a kind of changeling thing. We don't. You see him briefly when Tuvok changes into him. It'd be like, oh yeah, he's just
to rub it in,
like
right?
you, and he looks a bit grey and dead, but he's probably not, because remember in the last episode, right at the very end, I'm not going to ruin 35 years of loyalty. You nuts? And then Barrett's like, hold my beer. Yes, you will. I've got your wife here, and maybe the kid as well. So you don't see him really prop in this episode, but Vadik is using Riker to try and locate the Titan because it's using his command codes. There's a thing that we learned that you can, just like if you lose your iPhone, you can go to Find My iPhone. This is the Starship version of Find My iPhone, Gray.
Find My Starship.
Find My Starship. Yeah. Only $4.99 on the App Store. And you can ping your ship to find out where it is. So the guys are like, quick, block them out, and they do, thankfully, which I found interesting. And then we have a little scene where Jack is then confined in his dad in jail. And I this scene here, I kind of didn't see the point in this scene, Gray, a little bit, just like the turbo lift scene, the chatting up. I guess it was just filling and fleshing out the episode a bit, but he's just giving her a bit of advice, and
I don't think it bothered me that much because what he was trying to tell him is that he can't stand everybody dying around him, and he's just like he just wants them to just give him up already because he can't take it anymore.
yeah.
And so I can understand that. I mean, that I think anybody would feel like that if that was the case. You know, you don't want to see all this going on because it's all appears to be your fault.
Yeah.
Sort of. So that's okay. I think that was an alright scene. The one in the elevator with her, what didn't fit, but this was fine.
But the reason I'm not sure about that scene is just because it was never going to happen. I guess it's one of these things that they have to talk about or discuss. That's an option, but it's never going to happen. Realistically, it's not going to be allowed. He could have allowed that near the start of Picard, and he didn't. So there you go. Yeah. Like Gray notes as well. Not much. We don't really see Riker at all in this episode. Officially we do, unofficially we don't, because it's someone taking his form.
Well, that's my second knock on this episode, because you left the last episode on a cliffhanger where, you know, they have Riker and they have his wife. There should have been something here other than with the teeny bit that we saw that addressed that. At least something to the viewer, at least that would have addressed that, like a scene of Riker being somewhere, but we don't know where. You know, something like that. And yet they didn't have any of it. And I thought that was very odd. So the whole episode goes by and you don't know anything about Riker. It just doesn't make any sense. They needed to slip a small scene in there.
This is the interesting thing, because this is the perfect episode for Jonathan Frakes to direct, because he's not in it. The episodes he was directing, there was a decent amount of them in those episodes, which of course you can still direct it, but you want to be able to have most of the time to direct and not be acting. So he doesn't direct this episode because he's only directed 2 episodes. I may be wrong on that, but I think it's just 2. The back-to-back episodes, 2 and 3, I think so. But yeah, no, I would love to see more Riker, but I guess everyone has their break, and we've had 2 episodes without Raffi now, so that's a bonus, mate.
That's a huge bonus.
That's a bonus, but then we've also not... No, actually, Raffi in last week's episode?
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, so what? Okay, 2 separate episodes, like not back to back, but yeah. So that's something.
Always give it a half point higher when she's not there.
He does. He's. I won't tell you what his score is, but it's something 0.5. So looking at it that way, yeah. So,
but I don't go along with the fact that, well, we saw enough of Riker before, so maybe we shouldn't use him now. I mean, it was important to the story that we needed to see.
And you still will see it. It's called episode 8, mate. Patience.
Yeah, but but you don't do that. You just left them hanging. You don't go a whole episode, because, to be honest with you, in the period of that whole episode, he ought to be dead already. I mean, there's plenty of time to sit there and use him for whatever it is, and you might as well just kill him now. So they should have at least flashed to wherever he's being held, just to give it some kind of continuity. So that's what I didn't like about it. The continuity as far as Riker's, like, it just wasn't there. You know, really, except for the one little scene, and I don't think that was enough. So they should have done something. That's just my opinion. I thought it would have been better if they had. Didn't have to be much, just something.
Agreed.
But whatever. But now they're going to have to get into it, because there's only 3 episodes left, so they have to have.
There will be, man. There will be, of course. Episode 8 will probably focus a bit on that. I'd imagine it has to.
They're going to have to come up with a real good way for him to get out of there.
So now, not really surprised. The Shrike manages find the Titan. Matter of time before it would catch up, because they're trying to ping this ship constantly. And maybe all these ships are linked at one point, so even in minimal power, they've still managed to find a way to catch up with them. And to their sensors anyway, it appears like there's been a firefight between them and a Vulcan ship. I didn't see the Vulcan ship, but I'll take their word for it. And the fact is, the Titan, as Grace said earlier on, is a big intact starship amongst a bunch of wreckage. It must have been the wreckage of the Vulcan ship that we saw, hence the scrapyard. And maybe the Titan came out a bit better, but it's still down to minimum power just to throw them off the scent. You know, At this stage,
Well,
it's
one of her crew, Vadic's crewmen said
the trap.
the 2 ships are dead in the water. He did say 2
Yeah,
ships.
but we don't see it. We don't see it.
We don't see it, right? So I'm a little like, okay, what did we miss? So I'm assuming like we're kind of extrapolating here that the other ship was wreckage of a Vulcan ship, which is obviously
Yeah,
what the crew on Titan knew, and so they came up with the whole ruse and came up with this recording.
we could say
Obviously,
that.
they had to manufacture the recording, right, to
Yeah.
make it look like there really was a
So
firefight.
they were talking before about they need to get hold of Vadik and they've got a plan. And then obviously it cuts to this kind of scene. So this is part of the kind of plan. We knew it was set up just from the way it was laid out before. And even Vadik's officers say, this is a trap, you know that? And she's like, doesn't matter. TikTok, you know, we got to get him. It doesn't matter if it's a trap or not. We got to go. So, and then she says, no transporters,
Yep.
shuttle only.
Shuttle.
Why not transport over?
Maybe they had inhibitors going on. I don't know.
Interesting. I just found a little tidbit. I just
Well,
found that so interesting.
possibly the other reason might have been that they just wanted to board the ship to see if everybody was actually dead, because they weren't reading life signs at first.
Yeah. You don't beam
And
aboard in case unless you know it's 100% safe because there could be no atmosphere or anything there. So, yeah.
So I think they came over just to investigate, innocently enough, I guess, to them anyway. And then, of course, we saw what happened next.
Yes, obviously it is a trap, and it turns out to be a trap. No shit, Sherlock there, Greg. The Titan crew sprang into action, and they managed to capture Vadik's away party, and even Vadik herself.
Vadik.
By it was Sydney and Jack talking to HQ, just telling them when to raise shields, drop shield,
Force
fields, thank you.
Force field.
At the right times in between the bulkheads, and they managed to get officers trapped, and a bunch of them in one particular room as well at one point. And then her High Hegian, her like chief foot soldier as well, big dude, trapped behind them as well. And Vadik as well. And you're thinking it's maybe a bit too easy here, but you do mention, Gray, that it was a brilliant little scene here, and brilliant kind of writing the way they've set this up.
I thought it was. I mean, I like the idea of getting them fooled with the recording, thinking it was a battle.
Good plan.
So much so that they had to come over and investigate, which was a great way to pull them off the ship, because it's the only way you're going to be able to try to be successful. They obviously had a really good plan of how they were going to run around and drop force fields, because that was the only way they could trap them. So that whole scene was great. I mean, they were all stuck there, and obviously they couldn't do anything about it, which gave them an opportune time to interrogate Vadik, and stuff. And so it all kind of made sense.
Yeah, it was a good plan, solid plan, to be fair, and they acted it out very well. The one small problem is that Jack and Sydney are now trapped in between Chief Goon and number 2 Chief Goon. As soon as those force fields go down, they are game over. Kind of
sandwich.
They are signage, bad guy signage. So yeah, at this stage, you would think, beam them out, and Geordie does try to beam them out, but he can't, because why can he not beam them out? Who's starting to take control at this stage here, Gray?
Big old lore messing things up.
That guy.
You see the whole scene there when all of a sudden the doors are closed, and then his Geordie's daughter turns and goes, "Why is the door closing?" And he's going like, "Oh, geez." Then you see Laura just appear in the window.
It's that scene we saw from the trailer at the very start of the season.
Yeah. That's right. And he goes, "Oh man," which was, I thought, again, a really, really great writing, because essentially they had them where they wanted them, and it looks like they were going to be able to do whatever they had to do. In fact, they even talked about, Beverly talked about killing Vadik, because she said, my code is to not harm anybody, but I'm seriously questioning it.
Picard is agreeing.
And Picard's kind of agreeing too, and desperate times, desperate measures kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but they don't do it, and which is cool. They kept to their ideals, at least as much as they could. But you weren't expecting the force fields to drop and get into trouble, and of course Laura sticks his what into the mix.
I'm messing it up.
So
And he's not taking over full control at this stage, but he is slowly but surely taking over each system and taking more and more of the ship over. And at this stage, he's starting to take control of things like the force fields and whatnot, because he is dropping force fields in between where Sydney and Jack are. And at this stage here, you're thinking, the proverbial is going to hit the fan. But we'll jump ahead of ourselves. Now, when we move on, Picard and Beverly, as Gray just touched on there a moment ago, they were interrogating Vadik. They were just trying to... It's the usual scene that you get a lot where speak to bad guy, try and get bad guy to spill their story. This, despite it being maybe obvious how it was going to pan out, was a bit more eye-opening because... She is an offshoot of the changelings. So she is a changeling, but she's not part of the Great Link. They are somewhere else on their own planet, their own little mini link, if you like. And it turned out back in the Dominion War days, hence the Dominion War, the Dominion for the title, the virus was given to the changelings, and then the cure was given to them afterwards. But the cure never was withheld from their world. It never made it that far. So at this stage, they literally had to go and steal the cure for themselves. And they had to steal it from the Daystrom's station. And this is where you get into the nitty gritty. There's a couple of dark scenes in this episode, Gray, and this is one of the first ones. You basically see someone that looks like Vadik, the original Vadik look person, the human being. Obviously not Vadik, different
apparently
name.
one of the scientists.
Yeah. And she literally has all these changelings and tubes and stuff, and they don't look very changeling-like. They look like just orange-flavoured water, but anyway. And she's experimenting on them and doing different stuff and torturing them.
Like Frankenstein, she's like electrocuting them, giving them garbage.
And Amanda Plummer acts this brilliantly because she's like remembering these flashbacks and cringing and clearly upset, and you can hear little scream effects in the background, and it's really, really dark. She's trying to get them to stay solid for longer because she wants to use them as weapons. But it backfires because at this stage here, they can hold their shape a bit longer. They hold their shape. Well, actually, you don't see a shape. It's just more of a outline of a changeling. And the changeling that is Vadik fights back, kills Vadik's scientist, and takes her form. And I'm thinking, this whole bit was just... There's a couple of dark scenes in here, but this was... Is it too much, Gray?
I thought it was a bit much, but then again, as you think about it, she mentioned that they experimented on these changelings to create a weapon.
Yeah.
So it's not unlike many countries of the world in the past and even now that will screw around if they think it might be able to give them some kind of advantage.
Yeah.
So you basically, whether it was Section 31 or whatever, kind of turning its blind eye and letting them do their Frankenstein operations, and they do it because they feel, oh, this would be a great weapon. We can infiltrate the bad guys.
Guantanamo Bay is maybe one such example, mate.
Yeah. So there's always something, in
Dodgy.
the history of many countries, all our countries, that we did stuff that we wish we hadn't or shouldn't have.
So it's not unreal, especially.
Right. So it's not unreal to think that couldn't happen. I think the problem comes is that all the previous Star Trek series, more or less, were always that this is what Starfleet doesn't do, that Starfleet stands for something. And if you watch the entire season of Prodigy, that's all they talked about, was how great Starfleet was and how good Starfleet is and how they handle things, and which is true. It's not saying that it's not true.
Yeah.
But you never ever see the seedy side of the Federation or the dark side of the Federation. You think
they're perfect and crystal clean and crystal clear. They're not. They're not.
Now, personally, I thought it might have been a bit dark, and we're going to talk about the scenes from next week's show. Yeah, it might be a little too much, and I'm getting a little concerned that they might be going overboard. But we'll see.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
want to.
Gray makes a good point. It's one dark scene in this episode and at least one in the next one because we talk about the preview then. Which, Gray, thanks for putting in because at the time I looked, which was this morning, it's never available for me that I can see here. So you've got a copy, you've stuck it on there, nice one. And I say copy, it's not, it's the YouTube trailer. He's not privy to future episodes. I wish we were that important, we're not. So yeah, to sum up that bad scene there, you could blame the Federation for what Vadik's doing. And when I say the Federation, Daystrom, so you could argue.
I mean, obviously, it was the Black Ops side of Federation made a mistake.
Still get the badge, mate. Still getting the insignia.
And the mistake in true Frankenstein is that the monster you created now turns against you. And so essentially, that's what happened. And for these people or these changelings that were tortured, they want nothing better than kill. Instead of wanting to kill just the people that did it to them, they want to kill all Starfleet. So
yeah. It's dark, man. It is dark. But yeah, as we're kind of getting towards the last kind of section of the episode, the review, our boy Lore now has full control of the ship. He drops the force fields, all of them, and the henchmen start going to take out Sydney and Jack. Now Jack can handle himself, but Sydney, she gets a couple of hits in there, but she can't handle herself the same as Jack can. What I found interesting here, just before you kind of see the fight off here, is when the force fields all drop, Vadik can escape. Turns into changeling form. He disappears up through a gap in the ceiling. But this whole time, Beverly and Picard are several shots into her, and I'm like, really? All I can think, Gray, is we've seen those changelings in solid form. They can take a couple of hits before they're down, or a direct headshot's game over. But here in their liquid form, maybe they can take a good number of shots before it actually affects them. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm pretty sure that's probably what it is, because you don't know what you're shooting at. You're just shooting into a blob. I think that when they take their form, they're more susceptible to injury to a certain point, because you notice too that generally speaking, like you said, they take a couple shots and then before they get vaporized, and they seem to get vaporized more easily when it's a headshot. That's what seems to be.
Good point.
A lot. So that being the weaker part for whatever reason. So it would be, and which makes sense, because if you were just vaporizing with one shot, the show would be over a lot faster. I mean,
yes. That makes sense. There's a lot of logic in that. We're logical people on the trick with. But yeah, so she does one. She's off for now anyway. They let her slip from within their grasp. Now the fight off between Jack and Sydney and the goons. Jack can handle himself, but he knows that she can't. He can see that, so he goes red eye.
Let's remember though, he went red eye and took care of those guys.
I know. But what I was going to say is he can handle himself there. What I thought he was going to do, Great, was turn red eye like he done with the 4 changelings before, and just go bang, 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 shoot, and then there's no need for what was about to come. But he doesn't do that. He turns red eye, and then controls Sydney.
But wait, there was a reason why he was controlling Sydney. Sydney was behind the force field with the bad guy. He couldn't go in. He couldn't get past the force field to save her. And somehow he comes up. Right, he comes up with the heebie-jeebie, whatever you want to call it, hoodoo stuff, and the eyes go red, and then links to her, and her eyes go red, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, he's puppeting the moves they make,
like
and she's
martial arts simulator, that kind of thing, and
exactly.
Yeah,
she's just like, wow, man.
It's weird. All the shields didn't, the force shields didn't drop off here. I think it was because I think Lore is controlling things, so he's aware of what's going on, and he's wanting it in for those guys just as much as Vadik is. So he's raising and lowering force fields in such a way that he can have people where he wants, and that's what alludes to Gray's point there that he just made. So yeah, no, good point. I forgot about that part, Gray. Now
that this has happened, it starts to make you wonder. So he's got this red-eyed weirdo thing he goes into.
Right.
And once he does that, he becomes like semi-invincible, and he can kick butt on anybody. Okay, now he links with her, which doesn't usually happen unless you're Vulcan or you're a telepath.
Borg.
No, it's not Borg. I don't think it's quite like that. But something's going on, and then we keep on hearing Vadik going, "Well, it's time to see who you really are, and who
Well,
are you?" And I'm
who's
not feeling right, and this is,
who's the TNG's ultimate enemy? And it's the Swan Song. It was the Borg, the ultimate enemy. So,
well, that depends. I mean, the two best enemies they had were the Changelings, Dominion, and Borg.
mhm, yeah,
And I don't think the Borg have anything to
yeah,
do
but
with this.
the
I'd be very surprised.
TNG crew, not the era of the TNG
Yeah.
crew. They
Oh
never
yeah,
really
yeah,
fought the
yeah.
changelings. But yeah, your point still stands great, regardless. Um, so yeah, they managed, those two, Jack and Sydney, to kick butt with the help of Red Eye Vision, whatever we're going to call it
Mr.
now.
Red Eye, Jack Red Eye.
All Red Eye is back. He certainly is. Um, but
His name is Red Eye Picard.
what we're hoping for the last, while they're fighting away, that's not enough to take the henchmen down. That's enough to keep them at bay. You then pan to Geordi up to the door where Laura is. Go, listen, Data, I know you're in there, trying to appeal to the Data side. Listen, please, please. And Grey notes here, very moving, emotional scene between Geordi, stroke Data, and Laura. It is, isn't it great? Because you could see LeVar Burton acting his wee heart out, really emotional, really tears, tear in his eye. He's like, please, please, this is my daughter. Please, Data, if you're in there. Laura's like, nah, not happening. But then Data's like, no, I'm fighting back. And he eventually gets through to him, like, you were pretty emotional or kind of moved by that scene.
Yeah, I mean, he was talking about how he was actually going through the motions of when Data died the first time,
Too
and what
much for
he
him.
felt when that happened, and how bad he felt. And he said that I could only go on
It broke
remembering
him.
you, and that because it really hurt me. And so you never. It was almost as if he was kind of saying goodbye to Data when he never got a chance to say goodbye to Data.
Yeah.
And so it's all coming out now, and they're, of course, we're all hoping that Data kind of clicks back on, but they did. To their credit, though, it wasn't like an automatic scene where like, "Hey, I'm Data, I hear you." It was not happening
No.
for a good while. So
Oh,
they kind
Laura's
of dragged
stubborn.
that out, which was cool.
Yeah,
Right.
no, yeah, because you don't want him to take it out of control too easily, because it was back
Right.
and forth a couple of times, and then Data, at least for now, was back in control a little bit. Because earlier on when they woke him up, he was talking about Captain. He's still calling him Captain, and Car's not saying,
Yeah, because
I
right.
don't know. Look at the
Well, the
pips,
thing
man.
when he started talking, you realize that he didn't remember anything except
Yeah,
back
he
when
said
just before he
Scimitar
died.
Enterprise E.
Right. Right. So he doesn't know. He's like, "What?"
Yeah, he needs a memory update. I think someone needs to give him a little
Oh,
download on internet and update you.
like they said, he's not quite the Data they remember, and he's battling Laura all the time. So it's quite a different. It's gonna be interesting to see
It,
what goes on
it,
with him and as the series ends.
Data Lore's body's a up-to-date positronic kind of body, a positronic brain, sorry, android body. Obviously, times elapse, it's a lot more elaborate, so that's why Geordi just can't program things in the fly and do what he done before. He needs to get to know this technology and get used to it. But yeah, so that, let's say, very emotional kind of moving scenes there. Data takes back control, drops that last shield, and then Jack just vaporizes the goon that's about to take out Sydney. The last kind of part here, just of the episode, is when we have Beverly finding. I knew she would. We all knew she would find a way to track the changelings. She would. That's her job. Something to do with the way they keep their form for longer. There's like a binding agent. It's
Right.
some kind of radiation binding agent. I can't remember its exact name. Who cares what its exact name? And they could lock onto that and track. I thought that was a bit too easy, but again, I'm not going to nitpick at that. They've found a way to do
Yeah,
it.
I
That's fine.
I don't think it was because they never got a chance to really figure out what was going on just from the one dead changeling. So they didn't know what the common
You need
thing
more than one
was.
in testing. You need
But
more than one.
right, exactly. But as Vadik put the story there, then Beverly's starting to put things together between what she knows and what was told. And
Yep.
that's when they finally figured out, oh, okay, so we can track this agent. Which has become obviously this is a big deal in this particular episode because going forward, now they have a way to track him, and that's gonna become important when it comes to, the next 3 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. so I say Beverly finds a way to track using this Biden agent, and they then, unfortunately, they then reach the bridge at the end of this episode because they've managed to capture Shaw and a couple of other officers, because they know where they're going, go towards them and try and take them out, but the changelings are too much for them and literally kill both of these officers right away, Shaw's officers, with just Shaw remaining. They capture Shaw, and we're talking about him being bloody and messed up again. That's how they got on the bridge. They must just use his handprint or his, his retina or something, like get him on the bridge. He's all bloody and battered and bruised, and he falls down and collapses. And there's the whole spiel of Vadik, take control of the bridge now, Gray. And she's
loving this too.
Oh, she's loving it. Oh yeah, Amanda Plummer's having a field day with this scene.
She's going like, I'm captain of the Titan.
I'm the boss now. But did you not find it interesting that it pans down to Shaw a couple of times on the floor lying down, and he's got tears in his eyes? I'm thinking, great, you don't see this, and maybe it happens next week episode, but I thought at the end of this episode, he was going to sacrifice himself. He knew what happened, and he was going to do something, like he was going to say self-destruct shit, blah, blah, and there's no way out of it. What did you think? Did you see the tears and you wondered?
I kind of was waiting for him to do something, like you said, but he never ended up doing anything. So unless he does something next week, it was more like, just him being that upset.
Yeah.
Stuff or whatever, which is possible. It's his ship, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, so at this stage, like Vadik is the chief, the captain now. She sends a speaks to the whole ship basically, and she
hails the whole ship, right?
She's talking to everyone, but especially Jack, and she's basically going to tell Jack who he really is and give him some answers. But next week, God damn it, Terry, as I say here, we're both frustrated by that, but Terry is teasing us nicely as we go along, Greg. Nice surprises and whatnot. So our final thoughts on this are, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Not a bad score at all, nothing to be ashamed of. Oh. It's just, I put 8 out of 10 because the plot's moving along nicely, just continuing, nothing too bad or good either way. And it was very overall decent episode. What did you give it, Grain, and why?
I had to go 8.5, and like I said, the 0.5 is because Raffi wasn't there. So always got to give it that little extra when she's not around.
But no Riker. So does that make it keep it
no Riker,
or
right?
9 or what?
Well, I could have went maybe 9 out of 10 if they had explained Riker and maybe even had Worf pop up or something, because Worf wasn't in it either. Yeah. They mentioned him, but he wasn't there.
I love it.
So, but either way, I mean, it's been really high quality, and that's what we want and that's what we expect. I mean,
yes.
When same thing like when Strange New Worlds came out, I loved the first season because it's getting back to the roots, the real roots actually. And it's been acclaimed by both people, regular folk and critics. And this is getting the same kind of treatment. All the fans love this and the critics love it as well. So it's what we've been waiting
for all this.
I don't know how many years for.
I'll touch on this really quickly, Greg, because you make a great point that the executives at Paramount are loving this so much, the work that Terry's done, that the secret hideout guys with Alex Kurtzman and whatnot are going to get maybe a back seat, despite them
they're
legally
already
contracted.
Getting a back seat.
Yeah, but they're still legally contracted with Strange New Worlds. They can veto Strange New Worlds going out if they want to, because they were hired to make it. So
they're not going to do it because believe me, behind the scenes, there's things you can pull, or you can get rid of their golden parachutes.
But the reason
the
reason I mention that is because they are wanting to give Terry Metalis showrunning capabilities going forward, make him the High Heejin permanently, and give him something to do, and that might be something like a Star Trek Legacy show with the kids there, or something else, maybe with, like we joked, like the Coffin Dodger Unite or whatever, the Elder Cockers as you called it, something like that.
If you don't know what we're talking about, there's been heavy rumors that there'll be a show called Star Trek Legacy, and that Terry would run it and basically use Seven, Jack Crusher, a couple of the other young ones or whatever, the LaForge girls, and et cetera, into this newer show, which I think would be a pretty cool idea. But what it does open up at the same time is for other older TNG people to make guest star appearances
Of
whenever
course
they
it
want.
does. Yeah,
So
right.
it could give us the new cake, and we all eat it too.
That's how you have more Picard without it being called Picard. He
Right.
can pop up
Right.
from time to time, special guest appearances, all of
Sure.
them on the Titan.
Any of them could.
I mean, it'd be
Could be a whole
disappointing.
episode where
It'd be disappointing if it was on the Titan without getting into too
Yeah,
much.
that's the only
Because
thing I
like the
wonder.
Titan for this one-off season because it works well, but every main franchise, every Star Trek in the franchise, you've got to have a powerful ship, and they usually have something state of the art on the latest version. So I'm sorry that they have to stick them on the Enterprise.
Well,
We'll have to
everybody
now.
wants this. If they're going to do a Star Trek Legacy, we would all love it to be an Enterprise. So it'd be the Enterprise G.
Yeah,
No, G, because the F is being decommissioned. But then you have to ask your question: if they were to do that, who would be made captain of the Enterprise G? None of the young crew can. They're not. They're not there yet.
7.
You can't. I mean, well, 7 would be the only one that would have a possibility. But would they really do that? I guess it depends on how the show unfolds.
Yeah.
Now, I personally think it'd be great. I want to see an Enterprise. I don't want to see a Titan. Titan's done good for what it's for, for the season. But yeah, I want an Enterprise G, and I want at least her, or 7 to be captain. Or you're going to have to come up with somebody that's a strong character to be captain if it wasn't her. And then she would be obviously second in command or whatever.
There we go.
Right. And then you can do all kinds of things, from that point.
We'll maybe do like a special
Unless,
before we talk about it more.
wait a minute now, unless they're going to use the remains of Kirk, clone him, and he's captain of the Enterprise G.
He said this before we went on air.
And I'll say it again.
I mean, I'd love that, but I mean,
and then you still have the young ones, right? Because who better to learn from than Kirk? Right? I would do it.
Right,
I'm telling you, it's a perfect opening. Think about it. They've already laid the little Roddenberry out there for us.
Right,
so,
right, yeah, okay.
And now
let's move on from the madness. You nutter that you are. Gray, do you want to give us a quick preview of the little teaser trailer we got for episode 8 and what was going on in that?
There's a teaser trailer on YouTube because they always put it out pretty quickly of next week's episode, and both of us have seen it. And the only thing that bothers me a little bit is it's really dark. Really dark. And basically, there's a whole scene where Vadik basically is still in command of the Titan, and then you see crew, parts of the crew running to escape her henchmen, whatever, and some of them are getting mowed down, etc., and they're trying to fight, etc. And then you see a scene where they basically close the doors off to the deck so that they're trapped in there and they can't get anywhere. And all you hear is Vadik with a big smile on her face, and all you hear is gunfire and everybody dying. And I'm like, oh, God, I don't know. I mean, go dark is one thing. Go that dark into brutality is. I don't want to say anything until we see the episode, but if that I think kind of went over the deep end for me a little.
Yeah,
so I'm really kind of hoping that there's an explanation or something behind that, or it's not as brutal as we think.
Too much. But we'll see. Like we can't judge it until we've seen the whole episode because there could be some context to it. Like you never.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
at the far end of the deck, in comes Kirk, and then he just blasts them all, and then.
Hey, I want to see Kirk just as much as you do, but I'm also not living in Cloud Cuckoo land. Well, I'm sure we'll get something to do with Picard's real body or Riker, Kirk's the body as well, because they've both been shown, so that's too much of a coincidence. But hey, we'll see what happens. Before we do wrap up, the quick call to arms that we are the Trekway on as well as YouTube. We're on the podcast and platforms as well if you want the audio version, and YouTube's got its podcasts as well there, so you get plenty of options wherever you listen to podcasts. It's available, and on Twitter at the Trekway as well. And don't forget, for my man here, Gray's got GGR, Gray's Green Room, which is entertainment in general. We do lean a bit more towards sci-fi kind of fantasy, kind of superhero
sorcery.
Yeah, but if it's something big and decent, we'll talk about it, of course. And he can be found on YouTube at GGR, Gray's Green Room, and on all the podcast platforms as well. And don't forget our friends over for the game side of things, extremepc.co.uk, which he doesn't have anymore. What is it now? extremepcuk.podbean.com,
Podbean,
something like that.
yeah, I think so.
He's on the old.
Look in the description right
yes,
down
it's
there.
always in the description. Actually, we always put that stuff in there. So yeah,
right down there.
And comment while you're there because we love your comments. But yeah, thank you for tuning in for this week. We'll be back next week again, of course. And until then, do your thing again, Gray.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.